to the program. Let's start with those investigations into the Public Accounts Committee, and there are calls for its disbandment.
Indeed, House Leader Aden Duale appeared before the Powers and Privileges Committee, and this is what went on today.
The issue of Graft.
The National Assembly's Privileges Committee is set yet again trying to get to the bottom of the Public Accounts Committee scandal that has put Parliament in disrepute. National Assembly's Majority Leader Aden Duale of Jubilee and Deputy Minority Leader Jacomi Diwo of CORD appeared to read from the same script, calling for the dissolution of the embattled Watchdog Committee.
Yes, conflict of interest. And I think in what I have seen in the National Assembly, that has been abused. That somebody will participate in the proceedings when he has not made full disclosure. You know, the issue being canvassed, which nobody is talking about, is how OP, Office of the President mandarins, fleeced the public. You're talking about the disappearance. I've looked at the audit reports. The disappearance of about 2.9 billion shillings.
The two House leaders also want new rules in place to streamline operations of the House committees. Jacoyo suggested that political parties should take the lead in disciplining errant members, whereas Duale's proposition was to have automatic leadership of key committees.
Among the many issues we need to amend in the current standing order, that was not provided. In fact, the standing order should be amended and to take back Parliament to the days of Jaramogi Oginga, the days of Uhuru Kenyatta, the days of Mwai Kibaki and Kijana Wamalwa, where it was very explicit and says the chair of the Public Accounts Committee should be the leader of the opposition. We are also appealing to political parties and political party leadership to take action. You know, the first instinct, which I think is very bad behavior on part of our political leadership, is to defend.
Both Duale and Jacoyo dismissed Babu Namwamba's argument that he is a political target and asked the embattled Budalangi Member of Parliament to leave politics out of the fight against graft. Jacoyo, however, took issue with the ability of the Privileges Committee to crack the whip and at the same time faulted the Ethics and Anti-Corruption Commission, saying corruption in the country seems to be a lost war. This as Institute of Certified Public Accountants of Kenya dismissed the parliamentary process as a waste of time.
All parliamentary committees in Parliament have been sort of accused in one way or the other. And we know in the past what has happened, how the parliamentarians like supporting each other.
But to slay the dragon of corruption, all of us, including that person who is thinking that there is money in every activity to be stolen, we have a responsibility to turn around.
The committee is expected to finish interrogating witnesses this week and table its report in 2 weeks' time. Aaron Ocheng, KTN.
All right, you're watching KTN Prime. We thank you for staying with us. Remember, tonight we're focusing on corruption in the country, and our hashtag tonight is the Graft Diaries. Already some of you are tweeting in, giving us some of your feedback. If I may read some, at Alan Sifuna says, where people ain't ashamed of corruption, sad indeed. Innocent Motiro says, well, in guys, shida, we have leaders who are the main actors in the country is gone. Those are just some of the feedback that you're getting. Remember, the hashtag is Graft Diaries. Let's now put our attention on this particular figure. 2,853,300,000. This is the amount of money that is unaccounted for at the Ministry of State for Internal Security and Provincial Administration. Of course, we're doing this looking at the report of the Parliamentary Accounts Commission. And of course, the main man that we're looking for, the man who is being accused in all this, is Mutea Iringo. And we are having some sort of feedback as well on this particular story. I understand we have to look at some of the feedback before we go on. Hashtag is Graft Diaries. Ben, do you have anything on your Twitter handle?
Joe says, that's Tanji Joe says, Continue keeping the Jubilee government in check. Be genuine in your government check. Do not accept tea again. Graft diaries.
Okay, so Kibora says, I swear those figures, Linda Gutu was explaining kwa TV sijaona any. I was focused on the figures and that are a little bit disturbing.
Yes, and another one here says, we're still trying to get those. Let's take a look at your big question tonight, where we're asking you, should the named officers in those reports be fired by the president? Keep tweeting that, and of course you can join that conversation on Twitter via Twitter handles at Linda Ogutu, at Ben_Kitili, and the hashtag is Graft Diaries.
Indeed, remember, tonight we're looking at the wall of the accused, the men and women who are being mentioned in the report by the Parliamentary Accounts Committee, the men and women who cannot account for billions of public funds. Of course, we'll be looking at this in just a few minutes. Your responses coming in on social media. What do you think about the amount of money that has been lost? What do you think the government should be doing? And essentially looking at what really this money can do if indeed it was not misappropriated. So tonight we'll be focusing on the Ministry of State for Internal Security and Provincial Administration. Rita Tinina is looking at the report that we got from the Parliamentary Account Committee, focusing on this particular figure from the Ministry of State for Internal Security and Provincial Administration. So let's begin this walk together. We're looking at 2,853,300,000 shillings. This is the amount of money that cannot be accounted for at the Ministry of State and Internal Security and Provincial Administration. So we're looking at the accused persons in this. Of course, we're doing this looking at the report of the Parliamentary Account Commission. The first man who's being accused in all this is Mutea Iringo. Mutea Iringo is the Defense Principal Secretary. He's not expressly mentioned in this particular report, but remember, principal secretaries in all ministries are responsible for the expenditures in their ministries. That is how Mutea Iringo falls in this docket. That is how his name is being mentioned in this particular report. So Mutea Iringo is being accused, one, of concealing. Let's go back to the previous board, please. What Mutea Iringo is being accused of, there we go. Mutea Iringo is being accused of concealing and withholding critical details of the expenditure. He's also being accused of irregular use of contra entries for cross-cash transactions, according to the PSA report, in a bid to circumvent the issuance of vouchers and receipts. Let's see what else Mutea Iringo is being accused of. Mutea Iringo is being accused of abuse of office and usurping responsibility. Allow me to quote the Parliamentary Accounts Committee's report, and they say the accounting officer abused his office and usurped the responsibility for confidential security expenditures, which properly lies with NIS, CID, GSU and the police, not the principal secretary. There was no reason for the PS at the office of the president to handle the funds on their behalf, with a considerable portion of the funds transacted in cash. Let's see the final thing that Mutea Iringo is being accused of. There we go. Violation of the government financial regulation. I'll explain this a little bit. This is in regard to the amount of money that was withdrawn from government coffers. I will tell you about a certain ceiling that has been set by the government. In particular, the government allows its officers to withdraw up to 700,000 shillings per week. This was violated. I will tell you how, and I will tell you how the officers involved attempted to circumvent this. Let's look at the second man who's being accused in all this. We don't have a face yet. Ben Kihia. Kihia is a senior accountant office of the president. Apparently, Kihia handled all transactions in this confidential expenditure. He generated, examined, and approved payments. Let me quote a report of the Parliamentary Accounts Committee again. It did not escape the committee's attention that transactions were handled by a single officer, a Ben Kihia senior accountant. He generates, examines, and approves payment. It alarmed the committee that Kihia was served in his current office for almost a decade, refused to honor his transfer to the Ministry of Industrialization months after notice of transfer. Kihia continues to serve at the office of the president, and no action has been taken. So we've been telling you about a certain amount, 2,853,300,000. Let's break down some of the numbers for you. Indeed, this is where the shocker is. Look at some of these dates. Look at the amount of money that were being withdrawn from government coffers. You have 20 million, 20 million, 30 million, on a day, mark you, and there's a ceiling of 700,000. So of course, we're looking at certain dates that some of this money was being withdrawn. Let's go back to the previous board, please, before we get to the 26th. The previous board, please. The previous board that had the amount of money that has been withdrawn from government coffers, the initial amount. Okay, as we wait to get that, let's look at some of the dates that we're looking at. On the 1st of January 2012, we had 5 million. I'm looking at the amount of figures that were withdrawn from government coffers. Before this, the board before this, because that helps to explain some of the amount of money we're talking about, please. Okay, so on the 9th of January 2012, we had 10 million being withdrawn. On the 16th, we had 30 million. And 31st, we had 10 million. So these amounts of money that were being withdrawn from the government coffers were varying. 30 million, 40 million, 20 million, 15 million on a particular day. Forget the ceiling that just about 700,000 can be withdrawn from the government coffers in a week. So I want you to put your attention here, because this is where the numbers start making sense. On the 26th, according to the report of the Parliamentary Accounts Commission, there were, let me count, 1, 2, 3, 4, let's go to the next board, 5 withdrawals in one particular day. Of course, this amount came up to 130 million shillings. 130 million shillings was withdrawn from the government coffers on one particular day. That was on the 26th of February 2013. Remember, this was just days to the general election. That's when we had the withdrawal of 130 million shillings, multiple withdrawals. Now, still focus on this particular figure to the 28th. When you add up the 5 withdrawals on the 26th and you add it up with this one on the 28th and this one as well, the amount you're looking for, ladies and gentlemen, is 200 million shillings in less than a week, just days to the general election. And that, of course, raises a little bit of questions. Let's now focus on the last board. On the 5th of March 2013, 2 days after the general election, we had a withdrawal of 30 million shillings. Remember, at this particular time, the country had no idea who the next president was going to be. Now, this is where we have a problem, because some of these amounts, we're looking at 30 million, 40 million, 30 million, 30 million. And we're looking at the ceiling for cash withdrawals, which stands at 700,000 per week. Let me quote a report of the Parliamentary Accounts Committee. They say the ministry, okay, we're looking at how they managed to circumvent this whole ceiling. There's a ceiling of 700,000 per week. Somehow they managed to circumvent that, and according to the Parliamentary Accounts Committee, the ministry went well beyond this without Treasury approval. To circumvent this regulation, the ministry operates an account at National Bank of Kenya, parallel to the regular account at the Central Bank of Kenya. The account, though referred to as police account, is reported to be a general account at the office of the president and seems customized to irregularly facilitate unlimited cash withdrawals. I'll say that again. This account seems customized to irregularly facilitate unlimited cash withdrawals. So that is how the officers involved in all this managed to circumvent the whole ceiling thing. All right, so now let's look at the recommendations of the Parliamentary Accounts Commission. The Parliamentary Accounts Commission recommends that appropriate disciplinary committee recommends that appropriate disciplinary and prosecutorial action should be taken against relevant accounting officers and other public officers as well. They recommend internal disciplinary action against all those culpable, of course, this being done by the appointing authority, including surcharges, withdrawal of the appointments. They also recommend that the officers involved should face the full force of the law. Let's get the next board. The Parliamentary Accounts Committee also recommends that the officers should bear direct personal liability for any public funds lost, wasted, or misplaced. And of course, they recommend a total overhaul of the law governing confidential expenditure in government. Of course, this is to protect public funds from abuse on the pretext of of confidentiality for national security. Finally, they also recommend that Ben Kihia should report to his new station. Here's the thing. Ben Kihia was transferred to the Ministry of Industrialization. He's yet to move. He's been a little bit hesitant to move to that particular ministry. Finally, the Parliamentary Accounts Committee recommends that the Ethics and Anti-Corruption Commission should investigate the office of the President with a view to taking appropriate action. So, of course, beginning today, we're looking at the amount of money that have been lost, Kenyan public funds that have been lost. We're looking at Graft diaries for the year 2012-2013 audited account, and we will be having the wall of the accused persons every single day. Remember, we have just started. We still have 7 more reports to do. Of course, we're looking at the money that has been lost for the next 8 days. We will dig into the PSA report and, of course, the appropriations account for 2012-2013, and we'll let you know the amount of money that has been lost, in which ministry, who is responsible for what, and in essence, we look at what exactly this money can do for the country. This is Graft Diaries. And of course, let's now look at, like I said, it's a lot of money. 2 billion is not small money. So let's look at what really this money can do elsewhere in this country. Ben?
Exactly. A lot of feedback coming on that story on hashtag Graft Diaries. And let's take a look at a couple of them. Peter Aminga says 2.8 billion unaccounted for. But again, how can we put the culprits to book if PSC is accused of bribery? And another one here before we come back. Sad, the very parliament and presidency who should protect public offers are the same ones. Let and keep those SMSs and tweets coming. Of course, we shall be coming to take a look at this 2.9 billion which cannot be accounted for, shall be taking at expenditure in the internal security ministry. But first, now that money which cannot be accounted for may perhaps be what maize farmers in the North Rift need. Earlier today, farmers staged a protest at the office of the National Cereals and Produce Board demanding to have their maize bought. Now, the farmers have been camping there for the last several weeks, but now the Cereals Board says it has no more money to buy their maize. KTN's senior North Rift reporter Mercy Kandie has more from Eldoret.
60-year-old Samuel Birir is a troubled farmer. He has been on the queue to deliver his 400 bags of maize to the National Cereals and Produce Board depot in Eldoret. And just when his lorry was nearing the gate, after a 21-day wait outside the depot, the Cereals Board announces that they are no longer receiving maize from farmers.
Mwenye lori anataka nikija, mwenye lori anataka nikifanya nini? Nikirudisha mahindi. Kwa hivyo tunaomba serikali watunulie mahindi na watuletee prospect. Ni hayo.
Birir says he waited patiently, his journey to the Cereals Board being a long one, beating maize disease, input costs, erratic rainfall, and finally, what would reward his effort, that is now a mirage. The abrupt announcement sparking off protests. Kim Arap Kolum is among the protesters. He knows what this means. The cost that they have incurred here while waiting has been a waste.
Niko na lori ambayo nilikomboa. Kwanza nilikuwa tumeakana na mwenye mahindi kwa kunia 100 ni 15,000. Lakini sasa hii ameongeza mpaka sasa imefika 20,000. Mwenye lori anasema sasa nilipia tena 15,000 yefanya nini? Irudi nyumbani. Kwa hivyo 20,000 plus 15 ni 35,000. Pamoja na drivers na nini ni ngapi? 40. Kwa hivyo tunaomba serikali watulie mahindi liko kwa laini na sile siko nyumbani.
The government received only 1.5 million bags of maize, that in a region that produces at least 10 million bags of maize each year.
Wakati ya enzi ya Kibaki, alifungulia sisi KCC, alinunulia sisi mahindi na kuongezea sisi bei. Kibaki arudi au usirudi? Kibaki arudi au usirudi? Turudi. Kwa nini tunateseka na Kibaki alikuwa mzee na alifanya kazi? Na sasa hii ni tititon.
The rains here are now just a few days away, and these farmers fear they will have no money to finance the next farming cycle that is due to kick off as soon as the rains arrive.
We have been rendered immobile. We are incapacitated. We are not able to do anything. We are not able to buy fertilizers. We are not able to buy seeds. We are not able to service our tractors.
The over 100 lorries blocking the road to the depot being the best way, they say, to show their dissatisfaction with the government's action. NCPB, on its part, admits that not all farmers have been paid, saying the government allocated only 4.3 billion shillings for the purchase of 1.5 million bags, that the board had no other option but to stop receiving maize as they had exceeded their budget by 100 million shillings.
Serikali lazima ifanye juu chini kuhakikisha hii chakula yote hii inunuliwe ndio kuwezesha hao warudi kwa shamba na sehemu zingine ambao na njaa nchi kwa sababu nasikia Samburu upande wa Northeastern huko wanakosa chakula. Tunashangaa kama serikali ni moja ama na serikali mbili.
They vow to stay put until the government buys all their produce. The parking of lorries outside the NCPB Eldoret depot is an indicator that the harvesting season was successful. But today's parking of lorries outside the NCPB indicates a different story, that of either frustration or a farmer who hasn't been paid yet by the NCPB, one that these farmers here want the government to address fast so that they can start the planting season. Marcy Kandia, KTN, Eldoret, Uasin Gishu County.
Now to that astounding figure of nearly 2.9 billion that no one can account for, but which was spent anyway, just as President Kibaki was leaving office and at the start of President Kenyatta's regime. The Public Accounts Committee report details how 130 million shillings was withdrawn mysteriously in just one day in what must have been a hurried attempt to spend as much of your money as possible in the shortest time. Such is the detail in pages and pages of committee reports that have hardly got to the public domain. For the next 8 days, KTN will dig deep into the PSA report on the government's appropriations account for the financial year 2012-2013. In the first part of our series, The Graft Diaries, Rita Tinina looks at the expenditure of the Ministry of Internal Security, where a junior officer is accused of operating a parallel account which allowed for unlimited withdrawals.
There are issues with national security that, for very good reason, are kept confidential. Mostly, this is to advance or protect Kenya's interests. But according to a report by the Public Accounts Committee, using the cover of confidentiality, specifically confidential expenditure, Kenyans were robbed of billions of shillings. The paper trail of this theft leading right to the doorstep of current Defense PS, Mutea Iringo. A report of the PAC on the appropriations account for the financial year 2012-2013, in the committee's own words, raises grave concern on the so-called confidential expenditure of over 2.8 billion shillings. Some of the funds spent between July 2012 and July 2013 were drawn upon by the Internal Security Ministry with Ringo's approval, despite the fact that he clearly didn't have access to the funds. The report in its findings states as follows. The accounting officer abused his office and usurped the responsibility for confidential security expenditures, which properly lies with the NIS, CID, GSU and the police, not the PS. These agencies have their votes and respective AIE holders. There was no reason for the PS at Office of the President to handle the funds on their behalf, with a considerable portion of the funds transacted in cash. This expenditure was not supported by documents. Only scanty documents such as ministerial certification were availed, but even then, according to the report, they concealed more than they revealed. Irregular cash transfers, undisclosed and unauthorized cash withdrawals, and unaccounted for funds defined cash transactions for the ministry. A Treasury circular dated the 14th of December 2009 set the ceiling for cash withdrawals at 700,000 shillings per week from accounts at the central bank. But in the case of the Internal Security Ministry, that was good only on paper. The ministry went well beyond the ceiling without approval from Treasury. In a single day, the ministry would make several withdrawals. On the 26th of February 2013, for instance, 5 withdrawals ranging from 20 million to 30 million shillings were made. On that day alone, the ministry withdrew 130 million shillings without supporting expenditure documents. How exactly the funds were utilized and for what purpose remains a mystery. But it gets worse. The ministry operates an account at the National Bank of Kenya, parallel to the regular account at the Central Bank. The account is referred to as a police account, but according to the report, it is customized to regularly facilitate unlimited cash withdrawals. The committee availed check numbers of amounts varying from 10 million shillings to 33 million on specific dates between July 2012 and July 2013 as part of its evidence of the theft. And the plot thickens. All transactions were handled by a single officer, one Ben Kehia, a senior accountant at the Office of the President. Kehia generates, examines, and approves payments. And that comes with years of experience. According to the report, Kehia has served in the same position for almost a decade. In fact, he had refused to take up his transfer to the Ministry of Industrialization and no action was taken. The committee has invited the EACC to investigate Kehia's activities at OP. Then there is the procurement of residential houses and commercial units for the police. 7 payments amounting to 1.3 billion shillings were made between the 15th of June and the 23rd of November 2012 to Eastgate Apartments Limited for purchase of 300 residential units. In the purchase, direct procurement was used instead of open tendering. Invitation for sealed bids was made to a single vendor who also determined the purchase price. Direct procurement under the Public Procurement and Disposal Act is restricted to services of an advisory or intellectual nature. Housing, according to the report, does not fit the bill. From tailor-made procurement to suit-favored vendors to one-man transactions of public funds amounting to billions of shillings, the PAC has invited the EACC to investigate the issues and recommends disciplinary action against officers involved. But with such reports largely out of reach for the public, many Kenyans remain in the dark over how exactly public funds are utilized. Rita Tinina, KTN, Nairobi.
Amazing figures, you must say. And for the next 8 days, we shall be training our cameras on the Public Accounts Committee's investigations into government corruption. Don't miss Graft, diaries, and keep the conversation going. Now, still in Parliament, and the national schools ranking may soon be back. That is, if the government implements a resolution passed by the National Assembly earlier today. KTN's Sharon Momanyi now reports.
Did you have, okay. I see also Honorable Member for South.
It is a motion that was tabled in Parliament by Kiminini Member of Parliament Chris Wamalwa, who proposed the reinstatement of the ranking of national exam system. He stated that the abolition of ranking in schools would demotivate students and teachers.
Remember, the result is only a product of students, parents, and teachers. Therefore, Mr. Speaker, the combination of the three must be recognized at the end of the 4th year or the 8th year, depending on the system of education that somebody's undertaking.
But this argument did not sell to some of the House members who are strongly against the motion, saying that ranking of students and teachers misinforms the aim of education, causing them to merely focus on grades rather than holistic education.
People have been saying that the parents are complaining that ranking has been removed. Why would a parent be complaining? The purpose of taking a child to school is to pass exams, is not to be ranked. You know, we missed the point.
There was no consultation. They did not consult the relevant education stakeholders. They just woke up and a few people decided there cannot be ranking, probably for their own private reasons.
Ranking is used by the private sector, primary schools and secondary schools by the private sector, to entice parents to bring children to their schools. When the school is number 1 in your constituency, parents remove the children from other schools and they take it to our school.
After the heated session, the hour of reckoning would come. Which way forward on matters ranking? The ayes had it, making the proposal of the House that of reinstating the ranking system. Is this the best way forward for education in the country? Teachers and students from schools in different parts of the country still hold different views.
How do you rank schools like Alliance with schools like Nyakiminja in Kisii, which do not even have a laboratory? Students who have never seen a microscope. You rank them together with these very senior schools, and it's unfair.
Brings about competition to ourselves, and it helps us to compete. But without it, we will be dull and we won't revise to our best.
The government has not been fair in ranking the school, because how can you only rank in academics alone? Yet you also have the co-curricular activities.
We fail to appreciate those who are working hard, and we fail to recognize the faults of those who are not. It makes us think that everyone is doing the same thing.
To rank or not to rank is the big question, with a bit of criticism on whether the legislators are merely politicizing the entire issue or ironed it out to seek the best for education in the country. For now, though, the buck stops with the Education Ministry. Sharma Manyi, KTN, Nairobi.
Many thanks for staying with us. Welcome back to KTN Prime.
Indeed, let's focus our attention to Mandera and Wajir, and we're looking at security. And officials in Wajir are still trying to piece together the motives of the attack, in which armed gunmen stormed a shop, killing 4 people on the spot.
Now, the attack also left 3 people with serious gun wounds. The incident happened hours before suspects in the Mandera terrorist attack were arraigned in court here in the capital.
The attack that took place at 7:30 on Tuesday evening raised questions on the state of security in the county. Residents are visibly angered by the incident. Area County Commander Samuel Mukindia said that the incident was a violent robbery and not an act of terrorism. So far, no suspect has been arrested following the attack that saw 4 people burnt beyond recognition. Mukindia said they are in the process of identifying the bodies so that their next of kin can take them for burial, since the victims do not come from Wajir.
We don't believe this is an act of Al-Shabaab. This is just a thuggery, although we don't deny having pockets of sympathizers of Al-Shabaab in this area.
The area chief Adan Ali echoed the sentiment condemning the heinous act and called on the public to report any suspected characters in their locality.
Hii ni vita ambayo wanapiga watu wa Wajir, hata ingawa wanalenga watu kutoka sehemu zingine. Amini hiyo lengo yao ni kuleta uhasama baina ya jamii. Mzuri tusimame imara kwa vyovyote.
Wajir County has witnessed a series of attacks and no one has since been prosecuted. Meanwhile, a Kenyan and 4 Somalis were today charged in a Nairobi court with killing 35 people at a quarry in Mandera. The 4 were among those police linked to the Al-Shabaab terror group, suspected to have staged the attack. The Interior Cabinet Secretary on his part has assured residents in the northern frontier that the government will beef up security in the region. Joseph Ngaiseri says security agencies have been mobilized along the porous Kenya-Somali border to stop incursions by members of the Al-Shabaab terror group.
But the government is on top as regard to fighting terrorism. And I can assure you, I can assure Kenyan, that as I speak to you, we are on top.
According to the residents, since KDF went into war-torn Somalia, the country has been facing a series of attacks, and last night's attack in Wajir County was no different. Faisal Abrahman, KTN in Wajir County.
The same Wajir County now, the drought continues to worsen in the county as residents count huge losses due to the death of their livestock. The locals who are now appealing for intervention, they say they risk losing more lives, including their own. Fatma Poli reports.
Eldoret sub-county north of Wajir, the journey in search of water long and treacherous. And when these residents finally make it to water points, they don't always get to quench their thirst. This elderly man and his granddaughter walked for over 10 kilometers only to get disappointed. Water ponds completely dried up, diminishing pastures. The scenario across Wajir County, where residents have not seen a drop of rainfall for almost a year.
Watu yetu ni watu ya kuhamahama kutafuta malisho na maji. Ndio sasa shida mpaka inatupeleka watoto wanaenda wanazaliwa mali ingine, kitambo wafike hapa hata zingine miaka inakuwa kubwa.
The pastoral is forced to rely on boreholes whose water is getting unfit for consumption due to increased salinity. This group of herdsmen has walked for more than 20 kilometers to reach this water hole. Carcasses of animals that could not trek the long distances dot the land.
Maji na chumvi, amekufa mbuzi mingi 25. Hakuna maji ingine.
Hakuna nyasi, hakuna kukita kukula mali, alafu mali yote kufa tu, mbuzi yote kufa ajili ya njaa.
Further west of Wajir in Anole constituency, the only source of fresh water, a water tank which comes once in a week, has arrived. Queues of hunger-stricken families desperate to get the inadequate commodity.
7 days maji unaisha, unangoja ngine, unangoja 7 days ngine.
Desperation evident on the face of this little boy who has had to give up school to join his parents in the search for water. But even this water is not enough for their many needs.
1 days memaliza maji. Kama kunywa maji, watoto wamekufa kabisa ama ya mbaya.
Wajir officials have already declared the drought a matter of national emergency and have asked for quick intervention.
Getting water from Eldoret constituency, Eldoret town, and that's around 100 kilometers from here.
We'll also see whether we can appeal to the national government through the Ministry of Devolution actually to release relief farming, relief food and other assistance actually to these drought-stricken people.
But until a permanent solution is found, the residents are left to fend for themselves. This water point is one of the projects started to benefit the community, but the residents here claim that the salty water is doing more harm than good. Fatma Pole, KTN in Wajir County.
Good evening and welcome to KTN Business. My name is Abi Agina. So far, commercial banks have posted impressive results for the full year ended December 31st of 2014. That is except for Cooperative Bank, which has reversed the trend and posted a 12% reduction in profits. But what happened during the year and what is the recourse for the bank? Adelaide Changole has more.
The ranking of the country's most profitable banks has become a game of musical chairs, with KCB ceding #1 spot to Equity Bank and now Cooperative Bank sliding to 4th place after Barclays in the latest upset. Cooperative saw its full year after-tax profit fall 12% to 8.1 billion shillings from 9.1 billion in 2013, making the bank the first to back the ongoing trend of impressive performances for the full year ending December 2014.
And one or two things hit us in 2014 as you already expected.
The reduction was brought about by a one-off restructuring cost, brought about by the laying off of 160 senior managers at the bank. On top of that, the bank had to contend with a higher tax bill following the lapsing of a 5-year tax holiday.
So we listed our shares in 2008, and so we were allowed under CMA guidelines then to pay tax at 20% for 5 years. The 5 years ended in 2013, so from 2014 now we will be paying tax at 30% moving forward.
Cooperative also had to absorb 800 million shillings in losses from 23 of its 142 branches and also from its newly opened South Sudan subsidiary. Despite that, the loan book grew by 31% to 179 billion shillings, which saw interest income rise to 21.27 billion shillings. The bank also grew customer numbers by 1 million to 5.1 million customers, which saw customer deposits increase to 220.9 billion shillings. But Cooperative Bank insists it will be fighting to regain its place by the end of the year.
We project at least a 30% growth on our profitability this year.
To achieve this, the bank plans to take 60% of its bank operations away from branches by leveraging on agency banking and upselling its suites of products to customers, 73% of whom currently have just one account with the bank.
Imagine then the power of you coming up with a model where you are able then to mine more business out of the existing customers. And those customers, where are they? They are not out there, they are with us. They are in our branches. The 5.1 million customers are now selling a second or a third product to those customers.
The bank also plans to grow its loan book further by automating its loan application process as it seeks to attract more business. The board has proposed a 50-cent dividend for each share held. Adelaide Changole, KTN Business.
Well, Cooperative Bank is one of the fastest growing banks in the country, and recently it actually increased its ATM limit withdrawals to 40,000. Let's see how this goes on. Moving on, the recent move by the Tanzanian government to reduce the number of flights flying in from Kenya to Tanzania is set to spark a major row between the two countries. Observers have pointed out that airfares could soon more than double, a trend that could hurt consumers. We sought perspectives of some of the major stakeholders in the sector. The raging wrangles between Tanzania and Kenya have now found their way up into the air. In an apparent review of bilateral air service agreements, Tanzanian Civil Aviation Authority has slashed the frequencies of Kenyan operators into Tanzania from 42 to 14 a week, and also limited entry points to just 3. Stakeholders in the tourism business say the move could be disastrous for regional tourism as well as air travel.
The immediate impact of this is that the price of travel within the two partner states will escalate if something is not resolved within the shortest time possible. It obviously also has a dent on regional integration and the progress that we are trying to make, because we seem to be saying one thing on one hand and doing the exact opposite on the other.
Bilateral air service agreements talks between the two countries have been ongoing since 2007, with the Tanzanian government feeling aggrieved by the Kenyan government's perceived slow response to the matter. But Waturi Matu says the bone of contention lies with the delay in allowing Tanzania's fast jet to play in the Kenyan market.
It's going to have a devastating effect on business travel and on leisure travel, particularly leisure travel, because business travelers may be willing to spend a little bit more to travel to different partner states. But for a leisure traveler, if I have to pay twice as much to go across the border, I might as well not go at all.
The Ministry of Transport is yet to issue its position on the matter, as the Transport Cabinet Secretary is currently on a high-level trip in Japan with the head of state. Tanzania accounts for almost 10% of the key routes the Kenyan airlines operate. Kenya Airways has been operating 8 direct flights into Tanzania every week. Demand for air travel has been on the high within the region, mainly fueled by regional conferences as well as emerging investment opportunities that continue to attract business travelers. Well, we hope that that stalemate will be sorted out. And still in the aviation industry, national carrier Kenya Airways has confirmed that it has sent 10 senior pilots on early retirement. This comes in the wake of growing agitations by the Kenya Airline Local Pilots Association over the handling of the dismissal of the pilots. In a statement to newsrooms, Kenya Airways says the 10 pilots aged between 62 and 65 years were all set to retire in due course, but the process was accelerated as the airline reduced its Boeing 777-200 fleet. According to the airline, the pilots would still receive their full benefits, having served the airline for decades. And moving on, I&M Bank and Mobicash have partnered to launch a partnership that will see the bank provide its financial services. Authorized mobile dealer Mobicash continues to be one of the key players in the business. This opens the gates for I&M Bank's foray into agency banking with the brand and I&M Karibu. The next few months, the I&M Karibu network services will be further expanded to a large countrywide network. The rollout enables I&M to tap into Mobicash's network with the objective of increasing convenience among customers. This will easily help people who are transacting money to be able to handle more transactions as well as get better convenience in their transactions.
A very good evening it is. This is KTN Sports. My name is Moses Wahisi. So today we start on a golf gear where with only 3 weeks left before the Kenya Open golf tournament tees off, this year's edition is promising to be thrilling, with more than 150 participants expected to take part. The organizers of the tournament have also spiced the honors, with the winners expected to pocket a mouth-watering €32,000. The tournament will start on the 6th of April at the Karen County Golf Club. Robinson Okenye with more details.
With the time slowly ticking to the teeing off of the 2015 Barclays Kenya Open Golf Tournament, preparations are being top gear to make sure the prestigious tournament maintains its stature. The tournament, which is now being held on a 5th consecutive year at the Karen Country Club, has attracted more than 150 golfers from 26 countries, 100 of which are from the European Challenge. With stiff competition expected in this year's challenge, the organizers have spiced up the tournament by putting up the prize money at 19.4 million shillings, with the winner pocketing 3.1 million Kenya shillings.
As usual, 156 players in total to participate. Of the 156 players, 6 are amateurs, and the other 150 are professional golfers.
Peter Livingstone remains the only Kenyan to have won the Kenya Open Golf Tournament way back in 1994. Jacob Okello came close to becoming the first homegrown player to lift the prestigious trophy in 1998. The organizers now hope that the pre-event tournament that Kenya golfers have been competing will result in improved performances at the Par 72 Karen and Country Club next month.
There are some people who peak at the right time, and I'm hoping that the Kenyans will be able to have a few of them peaking at the right time. They've been playing a lot of golf, and that may counter it, especially when they don't play a lot of golf continuously during the whole year, and they concentrate all that golf in one period of time.
The tournament will tee off on the 7th and 8th with the Pro-Am, which paves way for the tournament proper. Robinson Okenye, KTN Sports.
To matters athletics. Defending World Cross Country champion Japheth Korir was axed from Kenya team scheduled to take part in the 2015 edition that is going to be held in Guiyang, China. Korir failed the fitness test at the Kigali Teachers Training College, where the team has pitched camp. Alice Aprot was also dropped from the senior women's team, with the technical bench citing a stubborn injury.
The Kenya national team to the World Cross Country Championships in Guiyang, China has been under residential training camp at the traditional Kigali Teachers Training College in Embu for the past 4 weeks. And with the world event just being under 2 weeks away, the technical bench is just working on the final touches.
Generally, the team is okay, morale is high, and according to my assessment, the team is ready for the competition.
Mazoezi yameendelea poa tangu tulipoingia kwa camp. Endurance na speed work tumefanya kutosha.
The provisional team was today reduced to a trim team of 24 athletes, with the defending champion Japheth Korir and Alice Aprot getting axed from the team. The World Cross Country Championships comes at a time when the World Cross Country and Road Running Commission is working around the clock to save the event from extinction.
This event was going to be cancelled because they say it is an event of the Kenya and Ethiopia.
Officials from the athletics governing body in the country, Athletics Kenya, visited the team at the Kigali Teachers Training College, where the doping issue that is facing Kenyan athletes took center stage.
The anti-doping exercise will take place in Guiyang, and we don't want to hear any Kenyan having been tested that you test positive. No.
Well, the Kenyan team to this year's World Cross Country Championships in Guiyang, China has its work cut out, with the 2010 World Cross Country Championships that returned home a perfect score, remaining the benchmark for these events. Lane Washira, KTN.
You're watching KTN Prime. We thank you for staying with us. Just before we go, let's look at our big question tonight. We're focusing on the report of the Parliamentary Accounts Committee, and you're asking, should named officers be fired by the president?
Michael Wafula says no, they should be jailed. If the law was applied, we would probably go for a general election because government is full of rots.
Ibrahim Mohammed, follow the money trail and you get the culprits who were the checks addressed to. Who got the final withdrawals.
And Ahmed Mohammed on Twitter says, Kenya without corruption is a rich country. We can support our elderly and the less privileged.
Shukuri asks, what role did the custodian's National Bank play in all this?
Chris Morris simply says, I need a whiskey.
Thank you for watching KTN Prime. We'll see you tomorrow. Remember the hashtag Graft Diaries. I'm Linda Gutu. Good night.
And I'm Ben Kitty. Have a wonderful night. Remember, Jeff Konange Live begins shortly, and it is the bullfighter versus the Grand Mullah. Good night.